Nationwide inflation has hit a 30-year high and Canadians are feeling the pinch. Many economists predicted the Bank of Canada would raise rates today to try and control surging inflation, but just announced it would be keeping them steady. Joining us now with more is Peter Cishecki from Everything Financial. Good morning, Peter. Great to see you.
Nice to see you, Jason. Good morning.
First off, your reaction to the announcement, kind of a non-announcement.
Kind of a non-announcement, easy for me to say, apparently. And we don't need to jump off a cliff or run around the streets with our hair on fire. And it was a lot of fear and hype over nothing.
Let's talk like we're back in consumer ed in school. What does inflation mean? What does inflation mean for the average person?
Average person, inflation means they start to look and they start to tighten their wallets a little bit. They start to all of a sudden just not grab the first thing on the shelf, because what happens is if your income is not going up, then all of a sudden your purchasing power, in other words, how far a dollar goes, is a little less. It does not quite go as far. And inflation, when they figure out inflation, they have so many factors taken into account. But for the average person, inflation is not really that 4-point-something%. The average person on the day-to-day, that inflation at real goods, the stuff we all use day-to-day, is probably a lot closer to 7 right now. So you just have to be a little mindful when you're shopping for the most part, or putting gas in your car.
Absolutely. Okay, now how is the real rate of return related to inflation?
Well, this is what people don't really understand. And let's go way back, Jason. I mean, I'm older than you. So let's go back to the 90s when interest rates, and you could invest money in a GIC term deposit and get 12%. And people go, oh, remember the days way back when I could get 12%? Problem was, inflation was about 10. If you're doing a mortgage in 1990, you were paying 10. And I remember, because that's when I had my first mortgage. So the real rate of return is the difference between inflation and what you're earning on your investment. And generally, a lot of times, that's only 2 to 3%. So it's not like with your investments, inflation takes a lot away from your investments, because it's all about the real rate of return.
Mm-hmm. What would an interest rate increase mean for your mortgage?
If you have a locked-in mortgage, 2, 3, 4, or most people obviously get a 5-year mortgage if they're going to get locked in, it means nothing, because you're locked in, and you might be locked in for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But with this fear, I had a couple calls from viewers the other day who were just, emailing and calling in and saying, oh, should I change my mortgage? And then like, when is it due? 4.5 years. And they're getting calls from their brokers or the banker saying, you better change now. Rates are going up. Why would you put that on yourself and have all those fees and costs? Because if you're locked in, you have nothing to worry about. If you have a variable rate, yes, an increase of 1/4 point means your variable, or your HELOC, home equity we've talked about before, will go up by 1/4 point. But 6 increases would just put you to where you were before COVID, where the rates were then, which were still not that bad. So you don't need to panic and run around screaming like the sky is falling.
You mentioned the 90s back there. I don't even remember. I don't even know if you remember No Fear, that clothing apparel, but I want to talk about No Fear. Why is it important to not let fear guide our decisions?
Because as we've said many times, and I could spend an hour, and we don't have an hour, giving you countless examples, because then you make an emotional decision, a fear-driven decision, which is what certain commission people want you to do, guide your life by fear. And when you make an emotional decision about money, you always make the wrong decision, and it costs you more. Don't let fear guide you. Talk to your registered financial planner. Have a sound plan. Stick to the plan. Review the plan. Get a checkup every once in a while. But don't let fear guide a snap decision that will cost you money in the long run.
Do not be reactionary. Great advice as usual, Peter.
Not a chance.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Jason. Have a great day.
You too.